Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. This podcast features powerful hypnosis, so do not listen while driving or operating machinery. This recording is not suitable for those with epilepsy or severe mental health issues. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and in this episode of The Hypnotist, you're going to be listening to a hypnosis session that is linked to a craving, or some would even call it an addiction to sugar. And there's different ways that you can think about sugar. You can think of it in a really harmless way that, oh, it's just something sweet. You know, it's a treat. It's something nice. It tastes good. But there is another way of thinking about sugar which makes it undesirable. And this particular hypnosis session that you're going to be listening to was for a client that at one point in their life decided that they didn't want to eat meat. And the thought process enabled them to completely change the associations they had with meat. So at one point in their life, meat was just food that might taste good, or whatever their associations were. But then after watching documentaries and doing some research, they then looked at elements of cruelty and unfairness and different connotations about particularly the factory farming industry. Now, that was important for this client, not because this session has anything to do with meat, because it gave me an idea that this client was able to not need willpower or motivation when they had certain connotations. So in this particular hypnosis session, you're going to hear an analogy of a child growing up in a natural place with lots of kind of natural foods, and then a twin of that same child growing up in a more kind of, let's say, modern society with much more processed food, particularly sugar. And this session is designed to be very emotive, to almost look at sugar as an addictive drug almost. You know, you could think of not natural sugars that you get in a lot of food, you know, fructose in dairy products lactose in dairy products, fructose in fruit. Natural sugars, absolutely nothing wrong with them because they have things like fiber in fruits or micronutrients and things like that. So absolutely no problem. But the industry, the food industry, found that they could refine carbohydrates into a very potent form of them. And that's really what granulated sugar or high fructose corn syrup really is. It's a potent, extreme form of sugar that often has zero nutrients and has zero fiber, and that has a very strong biochemical reaction on the body. And a lot of people become addicted to this. So it is possible, metaphorically speaking, to look at sugar as the crack cocaine of food. And it's that connotation that is linked to this hypnosis session, not because it literally is the crack cocaine of food, but it becomes a way of looking at sugar as a way that it's addictive, has creates withdrawals, has an impact on the body, can cause lots of tendencies that echo what it's like when someone's addicted. It's designed as a pattern interrupt. It's designed to look at refined sugar in a new way, so that if you start to think that there might be an addiction, awareness is the first step in changing. So this is really for people that might feel that they're consuming too much sugar and just can't stop. If you're listening to this and you feel that this session is useful but not tailored to you and your circumstances, there is going to be a link in the show notes that you can book a free consultation call to explore working with me. But for now, find a quiet place where you won't be disturbed, relax, and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in. And as you breathe in a resourceful feeling of relaxation. And as you exhale, just allow your eyelids to close. That's it. Breathing in a resourceful feeling of relaxation. And exhaling feelings of tension, stress, or worries. So that as you breathe in that resourceful feeling and exhale that tension, you're letting go of that does not serve you, and breathing in feelings of calm, tranquility, and serenity. Notice where in your body any feelings of tension is. Could be around the eyelids, the jaw, neck, or shoulders. Awareness is the key to release. Once you're aware of that tension, perhaps you could even increase the tension just long enough so that as you release that tension, it feels like it's truly been let go. That's it. As you breathe in and breathe out, your heart rate slows down, brainwaves shifting from alpha to beta on their way to the theta waves. Deep levels of relaxation, but certainly not sleep. And when people naturally access that beta wave, it's easier to visualize, easier to connect with the power of your imagination. And I want you to harness that power of your imagination to imagine a nature reserve. Perhaps a nature reserve in or near to a ravine. And I want you to imagine a paradise. A time before laboratories and factories. A time where people ate food that they grew. I want you to get a sense that you can see that nature reserve, that ravine. Maybe you can see rolling hills, flowing water, maybe a stream or a river, the blueness of the sky. And I want you to imagine you're there, perhaps barefoot, in this nature reserve, breathing in the freshest of air. And in this place, continue to breathe in this resourceful feeling of relaxation and exhaling even more tension, enabling you to feel deeper and deeper relaxed. I want you to imagine that this nature reserve has been a nature reserve untouched by modern society and technology for hundreds of years. But I want you to use the power of your imagination to imagine that a town is built on the edge of the nature reserve. I want you to imagine there is factories in that town. There are companies in that town that just don't care about the ecology of the nature. They want to make as much money as they can. And I want you to imagine you have the ability to see the children that are eating these natural foods in the reserve. Fresh fruit, vegetables, drinking lots of water, and I want you to see how happy they are, how they play, full of energy. And then I want you to imagine you're seeing the children from the town. And I want you to imagine that perhaps the first experience of these children of having a substance, a highly addictive substance, could be when they were just 2 or 3 years old. And it came in colourful packaging. And it came from cartoon characters with smiley faces. It was given as treats and rewards. I want you to see these children in the town getting hooked on a substance. But all that really happened is they were being trained to become addicted. I want you to jump back and see the children in the nature reserve eating those natural foods because they haven't had that substance. They can enjoy their natural, healthy foods. No feeling whatsoever of deprivation, of sacrifice, of missing out. For them, food is food. But back in the town, these children get annoyed, restless, irritable. And this substance comes in cans, in wrappers. It's hidden in food, wherever they go. And they think it gives them energy. But I want you to see the fatigue on the faces of these children in the town. What it promises, it steals. And I want you to imagine, for some reason, there were twins born in the nature reserve, but one of the twins ended up living in the town. And I want you to imagine following the life of a child without this substance compared to a child with that substance. And when they're maybe 2 or 3 years old, there's no difference. But their life takes a different trajectory. And I wonder what would happen if you imagined that of all the foods that exist, that refined sugar, what would happen if you truly believed that refined sugar, the sugar that is distilled from its natural source into a refined substance, either granules or a goo, a disgusting goo that can come from corn, into a sticky syrup, highly toxic, poisonous even. But I wonder what would happen if you entertained the idea that refined sugar was the crack cocaine of food. Allow that thought to be planted in your head as you look at these 2 different lives of identical twins, one eating natural healthy food and the other irritable if they don't have that source of their substance. What it did to their body, what it did to their mind, the neural circuitry in the brain. Allow that thought to take root, that sugar is the crack cocaine of food. And just imagine slowly as you breathe in and breathe out, following the lives of these identical twins in two different environments. One has unlimited access to sugar in all different forms, and the other has never tried it, so they just have these natural, healthy foods. Continue to breathe in and breathe out as we consider the idea that sugar is the crack cocaine of food. Scientists have already studied that sugar activates the same pleasure centers in the brain as drugs, triggering a release of dopamine and creating a similar high or reward response. Imagine observing this child in the town. See them with cravings and withdrawal symptoms, the mannerisms of an addict. I want you to get a sense then, that sugar rush. Perhaps you can observe that child in the town at a birthday party or a celebration, lots of cake and sweets, candy and soda. See them jumping around full of energy. But then see what happens. They consume the sugar and it can lead to that cycle of binging and then crashing. The sugar rush and the sugar lows. I want you to imagine that you've got X-ray vision and you can go into the brain of this child that is consuming all that sugar. See how it's desensitized the brain's reward system, meaning this child requires even more sugar to achieve the same level of pleasure. With that X-ray vision, see how it's changed the brain chemistry, altering the dopamine and opioid receptors, rewiring this child's brain. I want you to get a sense that this child doesn't know that sugar is addictive, but it can't explain why it has this desire to keep eating, not realizing it's an addiction. See this child with a loss of control over their food intake. I want you to see this child is getting bigger, perhaps obese, maybe getting sick more often than its identical twin over in the natural place. See this child with various health conditions, maybe inflammation, feeling a lack of desire to move and exercise. I want you to see as well the personalities have shifted between the child in nature and the child hooked on sugar. That other child is now in a vicious cycle of reward-seeking behavior, throwing tantrums if they don't get that sugar, binging when they can because they don't know when they can get that next hit. I want you to imagine that you're seeing an addicted child and a non-addicted child. There are certain substances that could become gateways to more intense substances. And what if sugar in this child in the town, because it links food to pleasure, by being in control of what it eats and when it eats, leads to a chain reaction where this child, perhaps as a teenager or as a young adult, tries other substances to control where pleasure and certainty comes from. And of course, you already know, these children are just parts of you. There's a part of you that truly enjoys healthy, natural foods full of nutrients and flavors. And remember, when you eat them and you enjoy them, they feel good. You can get pleasure from that food. But also, those times that you've really craved something sweet, something processed, when you think about it, was it because you really wanted it? Or was it an echo of an addiction, withdrawals? When do drug addicts really need their fix? When they have certainty in life, or when there's chaos? It's the certainty of the substance, how it's going to make them feel, their control over when, how much, what they do. I want you to imagine that from this point forwards, you will start to see sugar with a new perspective. In the 1940s and 50s, there were commercials on the TV saying that cigarettes were healthy. And they knew it was addictive and it was killing people. But it was cheap to make. And they told people there was no harm. And when people become addicted, they start believing there is a choice. But what if it's the illusion of a choice? I want you to get a sense that from this point forward, you have a desire to feed that part of you that desires natural foods. The natural sugars you get in fruit and vegetables and real food. And I wonder what would happen if that other part was weaned off this substance. Wouldn't it make all other food taste better? Wouldn't it increase feelings of control within you? I want you to get a sense that sugar is a sinister, addictive substance that ensnares people, that gets people having more and more for less and less. I want you to look at sugar as something disgusting, harmful, that natural sugars are sugars that are enjoyable in the moment and when you think back to them later. But there's been times that you've been craving things not because you enjoy the flavor, but simply because you feel like you have to have it. There are certain animals that when a parasite enters their body, it starts to influence their decisions, turns them into zombies. And occasionally you might see a documentary or a news report or someone out there addicted to drugs, and maybe they look like a zombie too. I want you to get a sense that having the choice to feed your body nutrients is a way of having a second chance. I want you to imagine somewhere near that town is a factory farm full of animals raised to be slaughtered. But there's one animal there that has a chance to escape. I want you to see that animal, whatever animal comes to mind, escaping that factory farm, escaping to the nature reserve, escaping to the ravine, and having a second chance at life, a real taste of freedom. Not fed all of that granules and grains, but feeding on real natural foods in nature, living a real life. And maybe that addicted child within you deserves a second chance too. And if you feel that you want to take that second chance, let me know by nodding your head. Imagine seeing it escape, run away. And then in your mind, imagine that this child is back to a child again. Maybe at the age of 3 or 4 years old, I want you to see the child that instead of growing up in the town, they moved over to spend their life in the reserve. And for the first few weeks, they're craving and demanding that substance they used to get. But it isn't long until their brain adapts, their body changes, and they can enjoy healthy, nutritious food just like their identical twin. I want you to imagine that sugar and what it does to a body over time creates this disgusting feeling. I want you to imagine the last time you smelt vomit going up your nose, and I want you to get a sense that the look of this refined sugar in processed food will create a similar reaction, a feeling of disgust, not just at what it is, but what it stands for, what it means, what it's doing to people. Getting people hooked on a substance that can ruin lives. I want you to take all these thoughts, all these ideas, but also unlock a version of you that desires a future of harmony, alignment, and freedom. As you accept that all of this are thoughts within thoughts, ideas within ideas, dreams within dreams. And I want you to take all of those positive new insights, ways of thinking, new neural connections with you into the present in your body right now. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Just wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, get a sense that all of you are back in the present, listening to my voice now as I count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. Starting to count. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.
Thank you for listening to The Hypnotist with Adam Cox. the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review.